Hi, in this tutorial we'll create this stylized explosion in Blender. Here's the final result. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is create the outer glow of the explosion. For that I'll create a UV sphere. I'll move it up in edit mode and I'll delete this bottom part. I'll create a plane so it's easier to see the floor, and we need to keyframe the scale of this. So in frame 1 it would be 0, so keyframe it here with I. Then go, I don't know, 10 frames and set the scale to 1 and keyframe it. But then, I don't know, in 20 it will be a bit more, so it will look like this. Maybe we need to make it faster. There we go. And we can open the graph editor now, so we can tweak the curve a little better. So it'll be something like this, I guess. So it starts faster. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, this is quite nice. Now let's open the shader editor so we can start creating a new material and go into render mode in Eevee. And it would be nicer to have an HDRI, or we can just set here quickly. There we go. Shade these objects smooth, and I'll start creating the shader. We'll start with an emission, plug it into the surface. We need to enable backspace culling and blend mode to alpha blend so it can be transparent. So I'll create a mix shader and mix this emission with a transparent. So this factor controls how transparent the object is, and let's set this to be orange, like this. And instead of just controlling this like this, we need to use Fresnel, which gives this interesting result. It might be inverted, so yeah, let's flip it. There we go. And we can pick a color ramp and then have a bit more control over this to control the fall off, and this looks pretty good. Now let's open the ambient occlusion node. For this you will need to enable this on the render to make sure it works for Eevee. So this ambient occlusion basically gives this shadow here, and we'll use a color ramp to control it, and then we'll just mix it with this. So we would want to invert it and then add it. So add this to this, and oh, we were using the alpha instead of the color. So there we go, now it works, and it should also have this thing on there. So if we play this animation, we can see that it's looking nice, but we need to keyframe the opacity. So I'll take this here and we'll use a math and make sure to clamp it and multiply. If we multiply by something negative or just 0, it's fades out. So I'll keyframe 1 here, and then here it will be 0. So it keyframes the transparency of it. Maybe we wanted to start earlier, so yeah, and end earlier as well. So there we go, this looks very nice. Now we need to create something to add the particles on top. So I'll create an Ecosphere. There we go. And I'll scale it down, apply the scale just in case, delete this bottom half, and to make sure that the normals are looking up, basically just extrude this like this. It'll be nice just to check the size. Yeah, there we go, that looks good. Maybe we can give a black material to the floor so it's easier to see which is which. There we go. Now create an Ecosphere it's better to have it low poly so we don't waste any performance. And with proportional editing, I'll just give it a more random shape so it's not so perfect. It really doesn't matter that much. Now I'll create a new material for it and just give it an emission with an orange color, and just take an object info node and plug the random into a color ramp and then into the color, so each object will have a different color you can see here. And then we can just change this color ramp to whatever colors we want. It will be, I don't know, yellow, red, and a desaturated orange in the middle, I guess. Maybe it's too desaturated. There we go. This looks good. And maybe the strength of the emission can be 1.5. Yeah, that looks really good. So I'll just take all of this except for one. There we go. And here we need to create the particles. I'll just scale this down a little bit. There we go. And scale it. There we go. Create a new particle system with emitter. There we go. We want to start on the frame 1 and end the frame 3. Like this. Then the lifetime should be something like 20, and then the floor should be a collision object, so just check that, and should just hit fill particles so they don't bounce around it. Now hit here on the velocity, hit normal, and put something like 10 or something. No, that's too high, maybe something like 4. Yeah, that's pretty good, I believe. And hit randomize, something like 1. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now take the number to something like 150. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe we want to have a smaller object, so just scale it and apply scale. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now on render, hit render as object and hit your object right here. So see that? Yeah, it looks pretty good. Now take the end of your timeline and just put something like 40, so it's easier to replay and everything. Maybe that's too many particles, just 100 might be better. Yeah, I really like it. Now this object shouldn't be rendered, just go to render, show emitter, check this, and also in the viewport so we don't see it there either. So let's see how this looks. Pretty good. Now we'll create the fire that comes out of this thing. So there will be another icosphere with two subdivisions. There we go. And we'll edit it so it has the proper shape. There we go, something like this. Looks pretty good. And I'll also bevel this a little bit so it's not a... There we go. This looks good enough. Maybe a bit, I don't know, play around with it. There we go. I reset the location, move it a little bit like this, and we need to create the shader. All shade smooth, create a new one and hit fire. Here we'll mix emission and transparent again, so we'll need backface culling and alpha blend. Take emission, plug it there, and also transparent. No, not to the volume, just mix shader. And there we go. We can set the transparency. We use Fresnel as well. Make sure let's see. So maybe it's flipped. So yeah, the transparent should be the other way around. There we go. We can see, yeah, it's pretty good, but we don't want it to be like this. We want it to be quite opaque anyways. So plug this in here. So we can clamp this a bit better. Yeah, this looks pretty fine. Now, the color, if we just set a flat color, it will look pretty bad, like this. So we'll use Fresnel as well, using a color ramp. We can just Ctrl C and then paste it right here. and then edit it in one of these to make it more yellow or something. Yeah, there we go. We want to create a sort of gradient, so maybe we're going to have a value of 2 here and a value of 1.5. Yeah, there we go. And instead of just having like this, we'll mix it with a gradient. So take a gradient texture right here, hit Ctrl T to open the mapping. Also for the particles, it will be better to have it rotated on the X by -90 and apply your rotation. And there we can see if this is right. We'll rotate it by 90 on the set, or -90. There we go. And then we want to mix the Fresnel with the gradient. So this will be gradient or Fresnel. There we go, just something like this. And check your color ramp. It should be flipped, so flip your color ramp and then play around with the gradient values and everything. We'll create a sort of reddish one here as well. Yeah, that looks pretty good. The final shader, let's take a look. Yeah, maybe we want it to be a bit more opaque. There we go, I like it. And let's organize these nodes a little bit. Like this. Perfect. Okay, now let's just make them particles. First I'll edit this so we have the origin. No, that was fine. Yeah, here is better. And take your particle emitter and create a new particle system. This time it'll be here. Let's just put something like 10 just in case. Render as object. Your object will be this fire. Yeah, and hit scale, and we'll play around with the rotation. So enable it, hit advanced, and here we can have rotation. Will be normal tangent. You can randomize it, or yeah, normal tangent seems to be working fine. Maybe scale this in the cell a bit, so we can, yeah, maybe scale it so we got the. So, and sometimes also the seed changes a bunch of the things. Yeah, this looks kind of fine, I guess. Maybe more or less can change that. Just pick a seed that you like, and you can also randomize the rotation a little bit, so it's a bit more random. Scale it, and just pick a seed that you like. So let's, yeah, this one looks pretty good. Okay, now it obviously doesn't move with the rest of the objects. For this, I use geometry nodes. So let's create a new geometry node modifier, and let's open the panel right here, and we'll do a bunch of stuff. First, we'll displace the geometry, and also we'll add the scale. So we can transform it, and we change the scale. It just scales this thing. Also, let's take this object, scale it down. Yeah, that looks much better. So they're all in the center. And maybe pick another seed that looks good. This one looks quite nice. So take your thing, your fire, go to frame 1, obviously scale 0, and keyframe this. Go to the point where it should be the most expanded, and hit something like 1.2 or 1. 1 is okay, no, 1.2 looks a bit better. Yeah, 1.2, just hit that. So, and then, yeah, we'll make itself smaller. Right here it should finish, so make it 0 and hit I. So yeah, now it's all about playing around with the curves, so it's not so, yeah, weird or smooth, I don't know. Yeah, this looks a bit better. And maybe we can move this so it's much bigger, like this. Maybe scale this. Well, and I think this is pretty much okay. Maybe move this down again. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, now we need to add some sort of displacement that will make it a bit more dynamic. We'll make it look cool. So for this, we'll use a few things. First, just take the position node and we'll separate into X, Y, Z, all the axes, and combine them again. There we go. Unblock all of them, and then we'll use a set position right here. So it changes the position of it. Right now it's just the same position, so we need to randomize it. If we, for example, took a math node into the X, we'll see that it'll just move it on the X-axis because we're adding it. And if we subtract it, it moves it on the other way. You can see it right here in the object itself. Pretty cool. So if we, instead of just using a math node, we use something like a noise texture, and then we can use math for all of them. Yeah, we'll add it to all the axes, just scale the nodes. Yeah, there we go. And now just plug the factor to all of them. So you can see that this displaces the mesh itself, and it makes it look more like fire. So we can also just take a map range, so it makes it smaller or bigger instead of just bigger, so we have a better control of the scale. And also a math node will multiply the amount of noise. There you go. If we are adding negative, it'll also make it displace both directions like this. So multiply it. Another way of adding this is essentially just mix Rgb these modified coordinates with the other one. So this is like the strength, but I really like this, how it looks. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Now we'll create a new plane that will have this sort of burnt effect on the floor. Maybe scale it up and just move it slightly so we don't have any weird clipping. We'll create a new material and we'll enable blend mode to alpha blend. And let's just start. We need the shader editor, no, the other one. We'll create some gradient and distort it with noise, something that goes like this. So for that, we'll create a gradient texture. Take a look at it. There we go. And just hit the object coordinates. We'll have the center of the object. There we go. And just hit spherical. Nice. And now to distort it, we'll have to create. We need to have some noise that goes from the center in this direction, like this, instead of just normal noise going like flat. I don't know. So for that, we'll create another gradient texture. Will be object as well, and plug this into the coordinates. We can see that it's having some randomization in this gradient, but we also want to have another in like a radial axis. For that, we'll use a radial gradient. Right here we have this, and just mix them here. So this will create a weird effect, like a spiral sort of thing. It's like a transition between the two, but we want to multiply it, I believe. No, we'll use both axes, combine X, Y, Z. Each one will be a different axis, and there we go. And we can use a math node for this gradient to control like the stretching of the noise. Like this. There we go, pretty nice. And just scale this up. And that looks pretty good. Now we can use this to distort the coordinates of our original gradient. We'll just mix this with this. This will be the second color, and just hit a linear light. And take a look at this. There we go. We just distort it, and we pick a factor that we like, and then we can also take or maybe a mapping node, so we can make this smaller or bigger. Let me just make, there we go. Just we scale it down and we change this, so something like this looks fine. There we go. And I'll play around with the values here a little bit. A bit more distortion maybe. There we go. Now this will mix a transparent with a emission. This should go into the factor. So the other way around, I guess. Yeah. We see that it's looking pretty nice, but it's white, so make it black. Like this, just make it black. And we need to have a color ramp to control the fall off. So we'll clamp this like this. Yeah, I like that. Maybe we can have a bit less distortion. That just depends on the style that you're going for. Yeah, this looks pretty good. Maybe a bit lighter. Okay, and now we need to add some glow in the center, so it's not just like smoke. We use another mix shader between this and an emission, a new emission. It won't be the same color, and just make this like strong orange. There we go. Maybe strength 1.5 would look cool, and we can just change this. For the factor, we'll use this same color ramp, but changes a little bit. So we plug it here, and not the alpha, but the color. And now we control this with the color ramp to pick the amount that we want. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe a bit like faded. Yeah, and distort this a little bit more. That looks pretty good. And if we were to multiply this with a math node, we can set how much of the glow we have. So now we also need to multiply the original, this gradient, or this mapping, sorry. So just, or multiply the, yeah, I'll take a math node, just duplicate this one, and put it in here. So if we multiply it, I'll make it smaller, like this. So in the frame 1, it should be 0. Keyframe it. Now as the explosion grows, we need to have a higher value of 1, or maybe 1.2, and then here will be 1. So it has this weird expanding effect that might not be realistic, but makes it look really good, like this. And the glow needs to fade out. So here we want glow, just keyframe this, and then here we don't want it anymore, so just make it 0. Yeah, so if we play it, looks pretty good. Okay, now it's time to create this smoke around this. For that, we'll just create a, whatever, doesn't matter. We'll use geometry nodes to make everything. So delete this input and just create an Ecosphere. Plug it into the mesh and give it a few subdivisions. Now we'll use the set position. There we go. And just use position. Plug it into position. And use the combine XYZ and separate XYZ like this. And to displace it, we'll use a math node and 3 of them, and we'll use multiply. Just hit multiply. and we'll have a noise texture. Taking this position, maybe, yeah, and then plug it into all of them, and we can see that it's displacing it nicely. So yeah, I'll just move it there and we can reset the location. Maybe a bit more subdivisions. There we go. And we can play around with the size of this noise and everything to make it look like smoke cloud. So something like this is okay. And now we'll use Rgb Curves, which may sound weird in geometry nodes, but we'll give it this sort of cloudy shape by taking this up like this. Yeah, this looks... yeah, we can see that it just adds like this fall off instead of just normal noise. So now I'll multiply this, or just, no, I'll mix it with the original one, and just like that we have this displacement going on. Also we can just hit shade smooth now. There we go. And yeah, that's looking pretty decent. Now we need to have this go around a circle on this mesh, and we'll add all these clouds in every vertex of the mesh. So for that we'll create a mesh circle like this, plug it in here, and we'll use transform to modify it. We can change the location, the scale. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And we hit instance on points, and we will instance our Ecospheres. There we go. Yeah, they're too big, so we can also transform our thing after or before, it doesn't matter. Just make it here, scale it down, and we'll have something like 14 vertices. Looks good. Yeah, and also make this smaller. This is pretty nice. Maybe 12 looks good. Yeah, that's pretty good. And scale this down a bit. Now we need to randomize it because we can clearly see this repeating pattern. So here we can just use a node called random value for the rotation, but it's not enough variation, so just hit this maximum value to, I don't know, whatever you want. 1000, 360 might be enough because it's a full rotation, but I don't know, just make it this. It's good enough. And for the scale we'll need a random value, but not from 1 to 4000 or whatever. We'll create these enormous things. Just make it from something like 0.5 to 1.5. That's also too much, so just change it. Pick something that looks good enough. In this case I like this, so yeah, looking pretty good. Now we need to start keyframing stuff to animate it. Let me get rid of this for now. There we go. So first, at the beginning, it all should be 0. The size of this, we can keyframe it. So yeah, I'll keyframe this to be 0. Keyframe, there we go. Now here, when the biggest moment of the explosion, just make it something like the value we had before, or something else. It really doesn't matter. And then here, when this ends, it should be something like 0. And keyframe it. So again, we can change the fall off of this, just make it more exponential or whatever. It looks better like this because it's an explosion. That looks pretty good. Now also we need to animate this circle around it so it looks more dynamic, and also, yeah, for that. So start with, in the beginning it should be 0 as well, or just smaller, doesn't matter, 0. And now here it should be something like this. Keyframe it so the smoke comes from the explosion instead of just appearing there. Maybe it's gonna be a bit bigger, not necessarily from the center. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And now also the scale of the Ecospheres, I might want to change it because they start being too big. So just take this node and move it like this, so it has a bit of delay and maybe not so exponential or whatever. Like this makes a bit more sense. Yeah, that offset looks weird, so yeah, I really like this, and we'll animate the location of the smoke maybe. So this looks pretty good. We can just have this location going on. Just hit I here and then go into here and just make it go up just a little bit. Yeah, it looks pretty weird. So the location, where is it? The set, there we go. Just make it go from something like this. Yeah, looks pretty good. We'll also add some shaders and stuff, and that will make it look much better. Also, the scale looks pretty bad. No, not bad, just off. There we go. That looks a bit better. Maybe it's still too big. Yeah, I like it. And the size of the circle, wherever it's keyframed. Oh no, I just changed the scale of it. Yeah, we need to change this. The scale should be like this. Yeah. Yeah, now we'll add, maybe that's still too, I like this. And now we need to add the same thing, but again. So we'll have another instance on points with a new circle. And the instance, we'll copy this, doesn't matter, it's the same. So maybe we can just plug it like this and like this. And the instance that we're having should be this. Yeah, the same thing, but we'll use a new transform. So Control Shift D and plug this into the instance. Now, if we change the set location of our original circle, mesh circle, let's just take a look at this. Where is it? Ah, there we go. Just scale it up and move it. It should be like here. And then just take a look at this. Yeah, something seems to be, yeah, there we go. And then take a look at this. It should be instancing, yeah, nice. So scale this up, down actually, and this shouldn't be as intense, but it looks pretty good. And also we can just randomize the location, the set location of this dust clouds, so it's not a perfect circle or a perfect polygon. So just take set position right here in this thing, and we'll use some position and separate X, Y, Z. We use this quite a lot actually for displacing and stuff, and combine X, Y, Z. And just plug this into this, but for the set location we need to have a random value. There we go, and this plug it in here. Nice. So the minimum and the maximum, just change that. So this is without and this is with. Just add something, and it should be randomized actually if we keyframe the location, I believe. Yeah, so just at the beginning, the location where this, yeah, this mesh circle should be small and should be more like here. Yeah, it should be. Oh, maybe we need to, yeah, just use math, so we have more control. Maybe, yeah, math. I hit multiply, and just take a map range and multiply by something from 0.9 to 1.2, 1.3, I guess. So if we change the set location, it should be changing it. So let's mute this for now. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Take this and keyframe it. At the beginning it should be like here and small, so keyframe this, and then right here, the biggest moment, it should be a bit bigger, and up here keyframe both of them, and then here when it ends it should go up a little bit and expand a little bit, but a little bit. Yeah, and also, yeah, so mute this, but for the location we'll just have, oh, we're using the, there we go, now it should be working. Just need to add more contrast, I guess. Oh yes, we need to take a noise texture, plug it into the factor. Yeah, nice, that's looking pretty good. And they move quite a lot, so yeah. Maybe it should be a bit faster. It looks a bit too, I don't know, too yeah, too slow. So just change these values, these, and just move it on the X like this. Yeah, I really like it. Yeah, that's still too noticeable. And then just join geometry, join this one and this one together with this join geometry, and also we need to randomize the location of the set, the thing we added. Set position to this mesh circle right here. We'll make a little space here, and we can also use the same node, I believe. No, it won't work. Maybe, yeah, just Control Shift V. So here, put this here, but this will have a greater, like, yeah. So yeah, because the location values were proportionally different, I guess. Now we also need to use the transformation we use for this. We can just use this one, I believe. Yeah, that's good enough. But I would like to have some offset. So here it should be 0, 0. Keyframe that. Goes in here. Here it should be pretty big. And then here it should fade out. Maybe when, yeah, when I don't want it to have the same like animation in that sense. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now we need to make the shader for it. I'll have two different shaders. Also, I'll hide this for render as well, and this little Ecosphere as well. Yeah. So, yeah, I really like how it's looking. We need to add some materials. First, wait, I needed the geometry nodes. Yeah, I'll take geometry node, editor, hit this. Damn, these are a lot of nodes. We have the top ones and the bottom ones, so just hit set material and have two different shaders. We'll have the bottom smoke, or just smoke, and then the red smoke, because we are going to add a bit of emission to that one. So this one should be the red smoke and this one should be the smoke. Now let's create a, we will need the graph editor anyways, so just graph editor, and now we'll use the shader editor. And let's start with the smoke. So first add some emission. We'll need the principal VSDF anyways, so like this, and take shader to RGB. I use a color ramp, and this one will be constant, so we can have, yeah, look pretty good. So we'll add the dark tone of the smoke, then the mid-tone sort of thing should be quite dark as well. I like it, and this one slightly lighter. We can have 2, 3, or 4 steps. It doesn't really matter. It's just preference. So let's see how that looks. Yeah, pretty good. Now we will also add some randomization. Just take object info node and hit mix RGB between 2 different ones. We'll have this one and a more brownish one. So just add some brownish tones sort of things like this. Just make it more orange, I guess. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And put this, and that should look, yeah, pretty good. We can use a color ramp to control how much of this brown we're having. The white would be it, so if we have a bit less, yeah, I really like it. So pretty good. Now the same thing, we're gonna copy the nodes because it's easier. Well, also we need to add some transparency. Just mix it with a transparent. For this we'll need to have backface culling and alpha blend. There we go. And just keyframe it. At the beginning it should be 0. When it's big it should be 1. So then here it should be, wait, the other way around. Yeah, 1. Then here it should be 0. And then here, when it's a tiny thing, it should be 1 as well. So yeah, it's looking bad. Just we'll change this so it's more of the opaque version. We don't want so much of like transparent smoke. That looks kind of weird. So I'll just add more keyframes as well. That might just help. That looks pretty nice. I'll do the same thing for this. So just copy the nodes, paste them into the other material, red smoke, delete this, and we might want to keyframe this again. Okay, doesn't matter. It's okay. Let's just copy the keyframes from smoke here. We'll just copy keyframes, I guess. Copy, there we go. And red smoke, this one, paste them bottom frame 0. So now didn't paste properly, right? It didn't. Whatever. Just go here, just hit 0. And then here should already be 1. And then here it should be still be, well, 0. And then here back to transparent. We'll still need to enable backface culling and alpha blend. So let's see how this looks. Pretty nice. There's too much smoke, so I'll just make these balls smaller. So here, second ones, this will be it. We can just check these keyframes, the scale, yeah. So just move this down. Really like it. Yeah. Now we need to add the red thing that I mentioned earlier. So just have this thing, just mix shader again with an emission origin. We can just make it before, it'll make more sense. So just mix shader, and we'll mix with another emission. That emission will be, well, just like emission. There we go. This emission should be orange. like this. And for the factor, we'll use a noise texture. We'll have to use generated, object coordinates like this. Plug it into this factor. And we need to clamp it using a color ramp. So just no color ramp. We can make this constant or just smooth. It really doesn't change much, but something like this looks good. And just change the scale of the noise to be something like this. Maybe, yeah, I like it, not that much. Yeah, nice. Now let's add a different color. Yeah, I feel like it's all facing the same direction. I don't know why. Maybe it's just take a mapping node and we can modify it. Yeah, so just I'm gonna randomize this. Seems to not show that effect that much. A bit less detail and a bit less fire itself. Yeah, the gradient looks better actually. So I also wanted to keyframe the W value, which is basically seed. Let's see. Okay, so if we change this, it's just different seeds. So just hit hash frame divided by 5, which is just a driver, and yeah, maybe that's too fast. Just divide it by 12 or something. Yeah, and we still need to add more of this reddish thing, add more nice. Maybe that's still too fast, just 22. Yeah, that's pretty cool actually, but a bit less fire, and yeah, that looks pretty good. So actually, that'll be it for this tutorial. We can also hit look high contrast, so it look a bit cooler. Now, that's better. So yeah, that's it for this tutorial. I hope that you like it. See ya.